How does a childhood nickname end up foreshadowing the creation of a billion-dollar company? Well, today we're going to unpack the incredible story of Moniepoint and its founder, Tosin Eniolorunda. We'll see exactly how his innate drive to build, to tinker, and to control things from a very young age became the literal blueprint for engineering trust across an entire nation.
So, it all starts right here, with this nickname, roadside mechanic. Now, while his friends in military school probably meant it as a joke, it just so perfectly captured who Tosin was. You see, this wasn't just a hobby for him. It was a fundamental mindset, this deep-seated need to understand how things work by taking them apart and putting them back together, but better. And this right here is the key to his entire journey.
So, where did this all come from? Well, Tosin's dad was an engineer. And growing up in a lower middle-income home meant that, store-bought toys just weren't really on the table. So while other kids are playing with toys, Tosin was literally building his own. This wasn't just about having fun, it was his first workshop, his first engineering lab, where he got to create the rules.
Now, check this out, because this story reveals everything. There was this little competition to see who could build the best toy car. One of his friends just took a store-bought car, dismantled it, and then put it back together. But Tosin, he approached it like a true engineer. He designed the system from scratch, he sourced all the individual parts, he built the chassis, and then he integrated a power source. He was building from first principles, not just following instructions.
All this childhood tinkering really points to two core traits that Tosin himself says define an entrepreneur. First, a constant restlessness, and second, an innate need for control. It's this idea of not just accepting the systems around you, but really wanting to understand them, deconstruct them, and then rebuild them to be more efficient, more reliable, just better.
And that exact same drive for control followed him right out of his childhood workshop and into his very first professional challenge, a software engineering job at the huge Fintech company Switch. This is where the toy cars became complex, high-stakes code. His first task? Maintain this old point-of-sale application, which he basically described as spaghetti code, buggy, totally unreliable, and just about impossible to fix. His roadside mechanic brain just couldn't accept patching a broken system. So what did he do? He did what he'd always done. He took the whole thing apart and rebuilt it from the ground up, creating a virtual machine that was scalable, efficient, and could run anywhere. He seized control to make it actually work.
And this refusal to accept a broken system, that is the very instinct that led him to his greatest challenge yet, building Moniepoint. See, in a cash-heavy country like Nigeria, the real problem wasn't just about technology. It was about trust. How do you convince millions of people to trust a digital system that they can't see or touch? Well, you have to engineer it.
The big moment came after a business deal with a bank went completely sour. This was a huge turning point. He realized that as long as he was building solutions for the banks, he could never fully control the customer experience. So he decided it was time to stop being a supplier and start building a brand that controlled the entire process, right down to the final customer.
But here's the thing. You can't just build national trust overnight. It has to be methodical. It has to be deliberate. And what I find so fascinating is how Moniepoint executed this brilliant four-phase strategy, which was designed to build that trust layer by layer, starting right from the ground up.
Okay, so let's get into phase one. This part is really clever. In a world completely obsessed with scalable tech, Moniepoint's first move wasn't about code at all. It was about people. It was about leveraging a currency that's way more valuable than cash: existing community relationships.
They started by empowering local agents, the shopkeepers that everyone in the neighborhood already knew and trusted. They gave them an incredibly reliable system. But the real magic was that the agents were brought on board by relationship managers they actually knew personally. So the trust flowed from person to person, not from some faceless corporation.
All right, on to phase two. Now, you can have the best strategy in the world, but sometimes an external event, something you could never predict, just completely changes the game. And for Moniepoint, that's exactly what happened. And their super reliable system was perfectly positioned to take advantage of it.
When COVID hit, banks and ATMs were suddenly just out of reach. People turned to Moniepoint's agent network out of pure necessity. The system's reliability under that kind of extreme pressure was its greatest advertisement. Trust just started to scale like crazy as merchants and customers all saw that it just worked every single time.
And now for phase three. As if a global pandemic wasn't enough of a push, a deliberate nationwide policy shift created the next huge wave of adoption. This is that perfect moment where years of careful preparation meet a sudden, unmissable opportunity.
A new national cashless policy led to a massive cash shortage, and suddenly, every merchant needed a reliable way to accept digital payments just to stay in business. Moniepoint wasn't a convenience anymore, it was an essential service. Its agents basically became community mini-banks, and the brand became a household name almost overnight. And this brings us to the final, crucial phase. After building this incredible foundation of trust on the ground, literally brick by brick, person by person, it was time to make it official. It was time to cement their identity not just in the community, but in the mind of the entire country.
Think about this for a second. Only after building this bedrock of reliability and grassroots trust did Moniepoint launch big national ad campaigns. They weren't trying to introduce some new, unproven product. They were just putting a name to the reliable service that people already depended on every single day. That's how they solidified their status as a permanent, trustworthy part of the financial landscape.
So after successfully engineering a company and an entire national trust network, what does the future look like? Well, Tosin's journey also gives us a really powerful insight into how the very definition of a great founder is changing, especially now in the age of AI.
The very roadside mechanic skill that Tosin mastered, that deep technical ability to build complex systems from nothing, that was yesterday's most valuable asset. But Tosin himself believes that's changing. As AI automates more of the how, the new premium skills are going to be an obsessive focus on the customer, a sharp business sense, and the uniquely human ability to sell a compelling vision.
And here's the real takeaway. AI makes the act of building easier and cheaper for absolutely everyone. So the new challenge isn't just, can you build it? It's, can you build something customers are genuinely obsessed with? Can you create something with such a strong network effect that it becomes totally indispensable? That, right there, is the new frontier.
Which really leaves us with this final thought. The journey from the roadside mechanic tinkering with toy cars to a CEO navigating the age of AI, it shows a really profound shift. If technology can increasingly handle the how, then the most valuable founders of the future will be the ones who absolutely mastered the why and the who, an obsession with the human being on the other side of the screen.